Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. As a historic session of the budget session began in Parliament today, President Pranab Mukherjee made a customary address to both houses, highlighting various achievements of the Modi government. And despite opposition of parties, the government has advanced the budget presentation to the 1st of February, which it said would ensure important policy changes that are implemented by the 1st of April, when the new fiscal year begins. President Mukherjee, of course, touched upon various issues, and to discuss that in detail, we have in studio this evening BJP leader Rajesh Sharma, who's joined us. We've got senior Congress leader Vadakkan with us, also senior journalist Priya and Ashok Tandon joining us in studio this evening. If I could start with you, Priya, just to give us a sense of what exactly did the President say, some of the highlights according to you in the speech today.
I would say that this is unlike the previous years. Given the fact that we are in the midst of a state assembly election to 5 states, now that clearly, including the election commission's directive, the model code of conduct, all that has come to bear on the president's, in the preparation of the president's address. As the government prepares the address, the president only reads it out.
Yes.
So, given those considerations, normally President's address, which is the government's policy statement for the entire year, this time is more of a recounting or listing of the schemes and the programs, or you may say achievements of the government in the previous year. And it is not very forward-looking, and it does more of a review. On top of the fact that the economic survey has been presented soon after the President's
on the very same date, sir. Yes.
So it sort of it becomes the President's address. A subsequent reading makes it more like the first part of the economic survey. So that is what I would say overall. It is not forward-looking, and so there are very little indications of what the government proposes to do in the new year. Because budget session, as we know, heralds the new year, and the President's address begins that with a policy statement from the government. This year it is lacking, and rightly so, because I think because of this, the elections are there, and so in terms of announcing policy decisions, it becomes a tricky issue.
All right, Mr. Tandon, do you agree that with the economic survey being released on the very same day, the significance of the President's address is somehow diminished in a little way?
I doubt. Normally it won't, because the President's address will come up for discussion in both houses of Parliament again.
Yes.
But one thing I would like to say, that the previous experience always has been that in the presidential address, the listing of the achievements of the government in the previous year is always there. Because what happens is that in his last presidential address, the President must have, promised certain things on behalf of his government, and then it becomes incumbent when you come again before the joint session to recall what all have been achieved and where we are lacking, and therefore that part has always been there. Then he also outlines the government's agenda for the next year. So it was a mix of both. Now it is being viewed in a different perspective because the elections are there in certain states. But the practice has always been there. But I don't think there is any clash between the two. Maybe because dates were not available, that is why perhaps they had to arrange it on the same day. But nevertheless, the presidential address had its own significance. There will be motion of thanks which will come up for discussion in both houses of Parliament. The government will come under attack from the opposition on the issues which they have promised or lack of it. And there the Prime Minister will reply. So I think it is customary, and it's a very healthy practice in which both the government as well as the opposition, they get an opportunity to put before the people of this country, and the opposition also gets a chance to find fault with that.
Mr. Vadakkan, what would be the opposition strategy? I mean, as far as the President's speech is concerned, today his address, of course, and the economic survey coming right after that, was it a bit of a scramble?
Well, the interesting part is that this speech was probably one of the longest in recent years. And comparing his speech with the address on the Republic Day Eve, which had no content and had his thoughts. Now this is basically like essentially lisping the ideas. It's like a film scene where the playback singer is somebody and the actor is somebody. I'm not going into the detailing, but the point is, even the president from body language was very uncomfortable. What they forget, this president was also the finance minister and the father of many of the policies that have been on upgrade in the current dispensation. His discomfort is understandable because ultimately he's the same human being who's doing both. Now point is, you want to make a speech, you make a presentation, you have an extension of your manifesto being presented through the president. I mean, that's been systems that have been there in place. But yes, this is what is more important. This is election time. 5 states, there's been a mention by the Supreme Court and the Election Commission. The budget would or would not indicate that yes, these are the SOPs that are being offered. What has been passed off as promises, undelivered. Now there is this huge famous Delhi rape case. There was a huge fund allocated for that issue. And what happened? Nothing. No, it's clearly stated that not a penny has been spent. While the country is reeling with such incidents from Delhi to Bangalore or Trivandrum, whereas nothing has happened. Point is, aspirations are one thing, promises are one thing. But yes, on delivery, we are going to closely watch what they're up to.
All right. And was this a tough balancing act, Mr. Sharma, for the BJP, the Modi government, the president's speech, of course, and to not be taken as a way to woo voters? Was that a balancing act? Was it a tough one for the BJP?
BJP, I definitely say that it is never the BJP's word which comes out from the president. It is always what the government has done. And this time the government has performed. Everyone knows it well, that whatever he has put across, it was the Jan Dhan Yojana accounts which have been opened, the demonetization, the Ujjwala Yojana. So whatever is being done by the government are for the poor. He categorically told that for the Vanchit, the poor, the farmers, the Sosit, the Pidit, definitely this government is performing. And for that, I will earmark few of the things which have never been thought of. 18,000 villages which were not electrified, out of that 11,000 are now electrified in a very short span. The target given even by the government, even prior to that it is going to be completed. Similarly, I can say on a lot of other fronts, the Mudra Yojana, we have 2 trillion rupees have been distributed in Mudra Yojana. That will definitely create a self-generation of employment and will definitely, which is need of the hour in today's country, where we feel that more than 65% of the population is below 35 years of age. So employment generation is an important thing, thinking of the poor, because there is a huge gap between the haves and have-nots. So definitely the government need to be proactive towards the poor, it need to work towards the poor, and it has been working in the Ujjwala Yojana, providing those cylinders to the persons who have been slogging on those old system. Definitely those are all important and numerous steps which have been taken by the government, and government have performed definitely, and it has been applauded throughout, and whatever the president told is the performance of the government, nothing else.
Absolutely. That of course is which is why we are saying that it is the achievements of the Modi government which has been highlighted in the speech, achievements or the work at least that has been going on so far. But Priya Ranjan Dash, we cannot ignore demonetization. We cannot ignore all the work that has been going on as far as the economic front is concerned, being the budget session, of course, and being the fact that tomorrow itself we'll be seeing the budget being presented. Is this, in a sense, a precursor to what we'll be seeing in the budget tomorrow? This is the line that the government is also going to be taking.
No, I said it's not very forward-looking. There are no forward-looking statements, policy statements. So we have very little by way of indications as to what will come in the by way of pointers to the budget. But one thing, that's what you should look at the central point of the president's address. The central point of the president's address, as was being pointed out by the previous speaker, is is that this government is for the poor, for the exploited, for the deprived, for the underprivileged,
Yes.
for the vulnerable, and the centerpiece of all its policies, they converge to focus on the poor, okay? And that in demonetization, what you said, that demonetization has been, in fact, the President cites the example of Champaran to say that how the poor has demonstrated, resilience. So it's like the wealth of poverty, you would say.
Yes.
So he does that. So from there, can we then think about anything that points in the direction of the budget or in the direction of the future working of the government? The government's working in the past, both in the economic survey and in all the statistics that were being mentioned, are there also in the economic survey, and you would have seen that also in the economic survey.
Yes.
For instance, Jangan account, 26 crore accounts have been opened, or 11,000 villages have been unelectrified villages have been electrified, and 4,000 more villages would be electrified, or that 2 lakh crore of rupees has been given under the Mudra Yojana. It has benefited 5.5 lakh entrepreneurs, etc. The various schemes, the way they have progressed, that's all there in both documents, I would say. But what is not there is the central theme of the President's, as you said, and the government's policy now, is that the poor would be helped. Now look at what the economic survey does. The economic survey then does some forward-looking statement. For instance, it talks about, or it examines the possibility of making a dramatic structural change in the way government has been spending on anti-poverty schemes, subsidies, programs. Can it be now dovetailed, all of those dovetailed into one single universal basic income provision of that? Now it examines that. So perhaps you will get some pointed out of economic survey.
Yes.
To see what could be the future policy directions of the government. Now the economic survey says that it requires political will. Okay. Now that political will should have been reflected in the President's address in normal circumstances.
Okay. Do you agree,
This year
Mr.
it is
Vadakkan?
not possible. That is what I was
Do
saying.
you feel that perhaps the President's speech was not as visionary as what the economic survey was?
Well, after all, you were dealing with a former finance minister. There are certain things that you should put down people's throat, which is very difficult. And whether the President took cognizance of this and refused to take a position on that, you see, the problem here is aspirational. I heard somebody, a very eminent person on television, I don't want to name him because without his permission it would be fair. He was saying that for God's sake, complete the promises you have done before you start up with a new set of jumlas. You deliver. For the last 2 years, you have been promising and promises without delivery. Now, there was a talk about electrification. There was a speech by the Prime Minister in which he talked about certain specific areas which was electrified. On cross-checking, national dailies pointed out those places not been taxed.
Yes.
So his speech writer incorporates something, forces the Honorable Prime Minister to speak something, and there is a disconnect. Now the whole thing of demonetization, idea was started off with what? Well, the economy and black money, but nobody is telling us how much money has come in. How much of it is black money? How much of it is counterfeit? Here you have an impression from the RBI governor telling you there's no counterfeit. And as to the question of how much has come back, the Honorable Finance Minister says they're still counting. And this digital age and time, I mean, you're still counting. I mean, you just don't know the figures. Now, as to the question of digitalization, brilliant idea. Who's opposed to it? Nobody is opposed to it. But you need internet connectivity. I've been traveling all over the country. I go with my credit card, it's useless. And just imagine those illiterate, I'm sorry to say, a farmer, and then you're going about saying a story that everything is honky-dory. And what happens? You come out with an executive order, a cabinet meeting comes out that your interest rate for those 2 months are wiped out. Brilliant. And that's for an all India scale. But tell me something, those states that are going to election don't belong to India. These kind of shops that are offered election time stuff, I mean, it doesn't work well when you have messed up the economy, employment 35% down, and they talk about employment generation. I don't want to go into critique on the whole thing, but there is, I mean, you can literally write a book on this subject, because the economy, they have admitted in the economic survey that GDP is going to be affected.
Yes.
While we were telling them that, nobody was ready to listen. And who's telling them? The different international bodies. Economists across the country are saying things, but they refuse to believe. I mean, you do the 2 years promises that you made, deliver that in 5 years at least. You promised employment, where's the employment generation happening? These are issues that need to be discussed in Parliament.
Mr. Rajesh Sharma, you'd like to respond to that?
Definitely, one thing I will respond. First thing, nothing was Jumla. We have performed, we have been performing. That is the first thing. Second thing about the demonetization. Every government used to say we are going to curb corruption, we are going to take step. Every manifesto of every party, you had seen something or the other that we are going to take steps for corruption. But had any government taken a step? No. This is the government which dared to do that. And it has taken a step where fake currency, terrorism, black money, all type of things, I can say all type of crimes, drug mafia, all type of things will definitely have some hold. And with the second thing also, and nowadays you can see always a news coming that from this place, from this place, from this place, someone had done some handholding, some wrong things, and those are all being unearthed. So definitely, you can check one more thing. Since the previous year, this year the taxes and collection have improved, and after the completion of this financial year, I'm 100% sure the taxes and completion is going to again jump. Second thing, the GST is coming on. Once we make the persons in India, you take a call out of 22 or 22.5 crore persons who have taken PAN, only 3.6 crore persons are paying tax. So definitely all the persons who are not paying tax, they need to pay tax, it need to be divided equally, and the tax rate need to come down comparing to the world round. And definitely after this, the bank will have more money, they can give loans at a lesser rate, and definitely employment generation will do. And no one denied that for a short span of 1 or 1.5 quarter, definitely there will be a slowdown, but that will give a bouncing pump, and that will give a boost to the economy, and that will to some extent hold the persons who are corrupt. And other steps need to be taken along with this, and those will be taken with time. But this government was bold enough, this President Prime Minister was bold enough to take this very bold decision, and I can say about taking on different account, it was a great decision taken by this Prime Minister, and the fruits we will see. We have created an image in the world after taking this, and in times to come we will have even inflow from the world round because India need investment, India need generation of employment. So in that account also definitely we will be moving ahead.
Mr. Tandon, it seems this is going to be the sense of the budget session. The Congress is of course going to go ahead and criticize the government about demonetizing where is the black money, and of course the government is going to be on the defense on it and highlight the other issues that it has been also trying to highlight, trying to work upon. But the very fact that the economic survey, I'm sorry, I'm veering a bit from the President's speech. He did speak about demonetization, but the economic survey did of course also talk about how it is going to affect GDP. The government was compelled to state something on that ground.
See, all these issues will come up in Parliament for discussion on two occasions. One is the motion of thanks to the President, and also the debate on the general budget. Now, before I reply to what you are saying, see, I see some kind of contradiction on what different views are being expressed on the presidential address. Now, on the one hand, it is being said that taking advantage of the elections in 5 states, the government has tried to list out its agenda and promising a lot of things to the people. And on the other hand, it is being said that no, there is nothing new in this, and no new promises have been made, or no policies have been outlined. There is a bit of contradiction. Another point which I would like to say with due respect to my friend from the Congress, that we should not be saying that you have to deal with the former finance minister. I think once a person of the stature of Mr. Pranab Mukherjee becomes the President of India, I think we should not be reminding everybody that this government had to deal with the former finance minister, so therefore his body language was different. Or I don't think so. That doesn't look nice. But the thing is that we have adopted a parliamentary system of democracy in which the parliamentary proceedings and the procedures are outlined, and that gives an opportunity to the government of the day through the President of India at the joint session of Parliament, rather the beginning of the Parliament in a new year, to outline its agenda. So it's not for the first time that Pranab Mukherjee is reading out the policies and the programs of the government, or trying to claim credit for what the government has done. This has been the standard practice. And now, as I said, it is being criticized, and there are contradictions. On the one hand, we say why at the time of the election, and the other side we say no, there is nothing new in it. So therefore, I think this is a constitutional requirement. It is part of the parliamentary proceeding that any president, whosoever may be, might be he was elected during the UPA regime, but the President of India is the President of India, and a person of the stature of Pranab Mukherjee should not be and cannot be viewed with the the goggles that he was a former finance minister. And I think he has done a commendable job in outlining what his government has done and what his government proposes to do. I think we should see the entire presidential address in that perspective, rather than trying to equate with the economic survey, because we should discuss economic survey only in the context of the budget tomorrow, not in the context of the presidential address, which is altogether a different thing.
And speaking of President Mukherjee, Dash, this is going to be also his last, isn't it? He's going to lay down office in July, so this is going to be his last joint session address.
Yes, that's right. You see, let me tell you that the constraint of the President's address in announcing policy decisions or making policy statement, that constraint has definitely been put forth by the fact that 5 states are going to elections. Number one. Number two, there is no such constraint in any government listing out its achievement or what has happened, what progress has been made in the previous year. So there is no conflict there. There is no contradiction there. If you see in terms of what the government proposes to do in future, or what it's favoring, you will see that there is one significant thing that has been made in the President's address, and that relates precisely to the elections. That is that the government would favorably incline to look at the possibility of conducting elections simultaneously to the Lok Sabha and to the state assemblies, all state assemblies together. That is number one, because President's address also says that elections take away a lot of time, cost, national effort. That is one. Number two, the President's address also makes this point that any decisions that the Election Commission takes in consultations with political parties with regard to curbing the power of money, or that there also the government would be very happy to implement or to accept those decisions. So these are two that I could find in terms of forward-looking statements or what the government proposes to do, other than the achievements of the past which have been listed, which would figure in various government documents. But specifically, if you look at demonetization, which was also mentioned by the representative of BJP, with regard to what comes next. Now the Prime Minister himself has been talking about it, but all those statements have been made outside Parliament. That Prime Minister, for instance, has said that the second phase or the next phase would be that we have a Benami Transactions Act, which we have not passed it for nothing. We are going to look at that. Or many such other statements, even Prime Minister, other ministers have been making those statements. Those have been made outside Parliament with regard to demonetization, with regard to black money. Those statements, the very statements even those very statements haven't found a place in the President's
Yes.
address in terms of the future direction in which this campaign against black money and corruption or campaign for transparency in the government will be taken forward.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Of course, the President's address, as we know, is there are certain constraints, of course, to it, especially in today's speech, especially perhaps a little more than other years. But nonetheless, the importance of it hasn't been waned, as been pointed out by Mr. Tandon. Thank you so much for joining me, and of course, we'll be looking forward to, of course, what comes ahead in the budget session with the big budget that will be presented tomorrow. But thanks so much for the moment on the big picture. That's all we have. We'll come back to you again tomorrow on another topic. Stay with us.